watching Shalom TV, celebrating Jewish culture. Funding for Shalom TV has been provided by the following. And by viewers like you.
Why do you think it's eluded so many people the importance of Israel as an ally and as a democracy?
Because I think people are afraid to look at the harsh realities. If the things that I think are true, there are hard times coming, and nobody really wants to ever look at that. I believe that many people just want to believe that, nobody means that. We can all get along. Americans are like that. We always have been, where we get along with our neighbors. We're getting worse at that, unfortunately, now, as we're starting to split ourselves. But we have to stop. We have to stop and look at reality. This has happened 109 times before in world history. Never again. Never again. We have the opportunity in America, for the very first time in human history, to break down our barriers, break down our differences, and actually stand together and say, we've learned our lesson, we're going to get it right. I know why Dietrich Bonhoeffer lost in Germany, because the people weren't good anymore. It was too late. It was too late. They had already been corrupted, they had already lost, and he also was only speaking to the churches. He was talking about the corruption of the churches and not about the people. The difference now is we haven't been corrupted entirely. There are still good people, and the churches are waking up and they're talking about the people who happen to be Jewish. There's a huge difference there. We're brothers.
In Jerusalem?
Yes, and what about Jerusalem?
Jerusalem. People think that we can just cut it up and give away peace.
You can't cut it up. You can't cut it up. It is the eternal capital of Israel. The eternal capital of Israel. There's no politician, there is no government that is going to solve this. It will be God's government that solves this. It's the eternal capital. It is His capital. Period. Let Him work it out. Let Him work it out.
Thank you so
stand
much.
together.
Thank you.
It is truly an honor to be here, and I am a proud Zionist. I am proud to be with you. Make no mistake, I know what that means in today's world, but I am all in. All my chips are on the table, and I recommend, if your chips are not on the table, put them on the table now. All in. As our founders said, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now is the time that history is to be written. There are many things that we have to ask ourselves. Who are we as a people? Who am I as a man? What is my relation to God? Is there a God? And if there is, how should I best serve Him? The world is on the eve of profound and dramatic change. But it does not have to be bad. The choice is up to us as individuals on what tomorrow will look like. We live in historic times, but I promise you, not only will God judge us, so will history. I invited my family to be here tonight because this planet and humans have been faced with this choice before. And humans have failed. We must not force our children to forget what we do now because of their shame, because of our inaction, but rather allow them in time to square their shoulders and proudly proclaim to the world when the time came, my father stood, my mother stood, my family made it clear, and we drew a line in the sand. Let them, give them that honor to proclaim your name to all of history. How much trouble is Israel in? Stop thinking of it so big. It's personal. How much trouble is the individual Jew in? And anyone who says, I am a Zionist. Let me give you a hint. A man who met his first Jewish friend 10 years ago. A man who spoke in Philadelphia for this organization after his first trip to Israel because he was trying to figure things out less than 8 years ago. A man whose only act is to tell the truth, has just been given the award of the Defender of Israel. That doesn't... That should show you indeed how much trouble you're in. You got me. It was said earlier tonight, a madman spoke. A madman spoke in the 1930s, and the world did not listen. It's worse today, because madmen speak, and the world hears and is aiding and abetting. I know the power of the foes of Israel, the earthly foes of Israel. I was called everything under the sun. I wear it as a badge of honor to be an enemy of George Soros. I was called an anti-Semite, anti-Israel, anti-just about everything. And at the same time, quote, a Jew lover, which I couldn't figure out how that worked. I was called every name under the sun because I said the Jewish people have a right to exist and Israel has a right to exist. It is the truth. And I will not only say it again, that George Soros is not a friend to Israel, let me add to it, neither is this administration. But as I said, in Israel's undivided and eternal capital, Jerusalem, as I said this summer, we are not our government. America is not a collective. America is built on the individual. I am a man, and I demand to be counted so others are not numbered again. Over the past 2 years, I have been wildly confused. I actually, 10 years ago, nobody would have crossed the street to shake my hand. I decided to get married and change my life and try to do talk radio and try to do something I had never done before in my life. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I decided to tell the truth and be who I am at all times and let the chips fall where they may. And when I first started doing television, I honestly believed that if I could just make the case, if I could show it in their own words, if I could show it in videotape, that others would see the error of their ways and say, oh, how foolish. I spoke about a coming caliphate and how this would sweep from Tunisia across the Middle East, that old enemies would align with each other to destroy Israel and the Western way of life. I said that there would be riots in the streets and it would spread to Europe, and then it would come here. I was mocked and ridiculed. I made a decision. Fall on your sword. When I was told no longer to say that, I put it up on a chart and made sure America saw it every night. You look at this, because this is what's coming. Before Egypt fell, it was already worming its way here. It is here now. It is in our streets. It is personal. And it has only just begun. We must not ignore it. It is personal. I do not come here tonight as a Christian. I come here as a brother. I come to you as a human. I have been making the rounds with Christians, and I want to grab those Christians by the throat or by the collar. The Lord would have me grab them by the collar, I suppose. The man in me wants to grab them by the throat. That wants to love the Jew because we can get him baptized. Stop. When I stood at 2 o'clock in the morning in Jerusalem, as I was writing the speech that I gave this summer, I couldn't go out during the day because a lot of people there apparently hate me. I said, anybody been with me in Times Square? I went at 2 o'clock in the morning to the Western Wall. And there I sat with a friend of mine as I wrote the speech. And I said, look at this. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Name any Christian place on the planet where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people are praying, not at the holiest place, they can't even go up, through the wall. Name the Christians that have this kind of dedication, this kind of faith. You stood. You still stand against all odds. You were told, do not take on the God of the stranger, and you have not. You have been loyal. We each have a puzzle piece. You have been told to stand, and you did. You've done so for thousands of years. As my wife and I this summer went to Auschwitz, the thing that stuck out to me is the room with the prayer shawls. Profound darkness. And yet people still worshiped. Who are you? What does it take for someone to be in that situation and to not give up on God? Instead, have it grow. The world does not hate you. The enemy of God hates you. Evil hates you. It is a game since the beginning of time. Evil thinks it can win. And the way to win is to force God to break his commandment, his promise, his covenant. He will not. He never will. You cannot beat God. If I kill all the Jews, he breaks his covenant. It's been happening since the beginning of time. Israel wasn't established because of the Holocaust. The Holocaust has very little to do with it. The Holocaust is just the last time it happened. Israel was promised by God to the Jews. But hatred and evil is growing at a profound, disturbing, and rapid rate. The media will not pay attention to it. We must. They have let us down. We must not let our children and future generations down. It is up to us as individuals. Member of the Teachers Union in Los Angeles was interviewed 3 times on local television, but it was never picked up by the national news. Member of the Teachers Union 3 times. Drive the Jews out of America. They're responsible. I don't know how many times I have it on tape from Occupy Wall Street here in New York, but they refuse to put it on television. It's an abomination what happened in Brooklyn last week. It is evil. Anti-Israel, anti-Zionist. It is simply anti-Semitic. It is simply anti-Jew. It's not about the banks. It's not about the land. It's not about resolutions, fairness, or the settlements. It is about hatred and evil and the killing of the Jews. A caller to my own show said to me, "Glenn, it's the Jewish finance kings." I said, "Gee, which century are we going back to now?" He said, "We have to stop. We have to stop them." I said, "That's fantastic. Where do we send them?" Believe it or not, he had an answer. I believe he said Madagascar. I don't know why he picked, but that's what he picked. But we have a responsibility. Let's look at it just as Americans. What does it say at the base of the Statue of Liberty? Who is that woman standing in our harbor? Who is she? She is the mother of exiles. How dare you call yourself an American and talk about driving anyone from this land? We have about an 18-month window to change the course of the world. When that window closes, you're done. And I believe I know how to do it. When I went over to Poland, I met with one of the righteous Gentiles. She saved 500 Jews. I sat with her for about an hour. And after all the cameras and everything was turned off, I held her hand. And I said, "Paulina, help me. I know we all have the seed of the tree of righteousness in us. What's the water? How can I water it in people?" One word answer: God. And then she said to me, "But remember, the righteous didn't become righteous. They just remained human." She started with a bowl of soup. Someone came up to her in the street, starving, knowing that her and her family would be executed. She said, "Come back tomorrow. I will bring you a bowl of soup." It started with a bowl of soup. We must never forget that we are human. No matter what society would say, today, if I told you I will kill your whole family if you feed someone on the streets, you would say I was insane. If the whole world goes insane, do not follow them. Band together. The world is looking for Churchill or Lincoln or Washington or MLK or Gandhi or Ben-Gurion. Anybody! Where is a leader? Anyone! Stop waiting. Stop waiting. This time it's different. This time, it must be about us as individuals. That's the principle of this nation. It's not one charismatic, God forbid, leader. It's individuals moving in the same direction. Those giants are here. They're all over the planet. They just need to stand and refuse to disengage from common sense and to forget of their humanity. That's all that is required. Common sense and to remember that we are all humans. How much trouble is Israel in? I'd like to flip that around. How much trouble are her enemies in? When Ahmadinejad says the Jews will burn in the fire of the Islamic fury, when Egyptians hold up signs that say, Jews, we're building the ovens, they say what they mean and mean what they say. Have no doubt they mean every word. It is time for us to do the same, to put the rest of the world on notice that we say what we mean and mean what we say. When we say never again, we mean our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. To claim that there is apartheid when there is none diminishes Nelson Mandela and all those like him. To claim genocide where there is none lessens the cries of true terror in places like Darfur. To claim oppression where there is none destroys the hope that the world will actually hear the voices that are fighting tonight to breathe free in Iran, in Syria, and in the newly reoppressed Egypt. The left says that they stand for women, yet they dismiss the rapes that are happening in the Occupy Wall Street movement today. The left says they stand with the oppressed and the meek, and yet they dismiss the killers at Itamar. They say they are for freedom of speech, and yet they bully, intimidate, and threaten, blacklist anyone who has a different opinion. Many times you can no longer tell the difference between the so-called peace activists and the fascists and terrorists they claim to stand against. But this is why they will fail. They have forgotten the true meaning behind the words. They're nothing now except a formulaic stage play, a photo opportunity, a catchy slogan or a chant. That's not what set people free. It was the truth that set you free. And God will not be mocked. The truth has power. The power of God. He is the truth. I spent about a year with Moses leading up. I mean, not actually, it's like it wasn't coming down or anything, but reading Moses. Before I went to Washington, D.C. for an event I did on the Mall. In that year, I was fascinated by God's use of fire. He protected his children with fire.
He destroyed with fire. He led with fire. It fascinated me. That fire is truth. It will destroy and burn out every impurity. Stand in that truth. Rely on that truth. It is the only thing you can count on. Everything else in the world will come undone, but eternal truths will not. It is my deepest prayer that God gives me the strength, and millions more, to stand beside you as a friend, to stand behind you, to bolster and to encourage you, and to always stand in front of you to protect. May God bless you. May God bless Israel, and may God bless our republic. Thank you.